Kia ora koutou katoa, it's Mrs. Goodson here, and this is video 6 for Chemistry 2.4 Bonding and Structure, and it's all about the bonding and structure of molecular substances. So we're going to really define what is molecular substances and how do we understand the structure and bonding. So first of all, we need to be really familiar with what is a covalent bond. A covalent bond is a chemical bond that results from the sharing electrons. And here's a little bit of a cartoon to help you remember to share. So we've got Emily, and she says, Sarah, I'm cold. And Sarah says, I'm cold too. So they share the blanket and they both feel cozy and comfortable. So what does that mean for our atoms? So if you just have a look at the picture over here, you've got atom A. Now, these tend to be non-metal. These are non-metal atoms that share their electrons with other non-metal atoms. So you can see this atom has nearly got a full shell. It just needs one more. And this atom B also just needs one more electron for a full shell. So what they do, instead of giving them up or accepting them, they share them. They share them, and they share the valence electrons. So they say it's covalent. It's the valence electrons they share, and so they both have access to a full shell of electrons. So they get stability from that. So covalent bonding is all about sharing electrons. Shared electrons are called the bonding electrons and are found between the nuclei. So there is an attraction between here and here. So these bonding electrons we have a pair of electrons that are bonding electrons, and we need to remember that they form between atoms of nonmetals. So if we look out for compounds that are made of nonmetals, then we will find some covalent bonding going on. Some examples are hydrogen. So this is an example of an element that forms a molecule, H2. These ones are compounds, so we've got carbon dioxide and water. So these are all non-metal atoms bonding with other non-metal atoms by covalent bonding. So negatively charged bonding electrons are attracted to the positively charged nuclei of both bonding atoms, and that holds the atoms together really strongly. These covalent bonds are really strong, and the force of attraction between the two atoms is a result of sharing electrons. Now, there are two types of covalent bonds: polar, where they share it unevenly, and non-polar, where the electrons are shared evenly. So we're going to come back to that in a later video about polar and non-polar covalent bonding. So what is a molecule then? A molecule is a group of could be two or more non-metal atoms joined together by these covalent bonds. So an example could be an element like O2. So that's two oxygen atoms bound together with covalent bonds, or it could be a compound of different atoms, so like silicon dioxide. It's got one silicon atom and two oxygen atoms held together by covalent bonds to form a molecule. Now, they can be very small molecules like carbon dioxide, or we can have very large molecules like DNA, like proteins. These are very important in biology, in nature. So we've got water, we've got nitrogen. Ozone is three oxygen atoms, so that's up in our atmosphere protecting us. Glucose is a really important molecule, so that's C6H12O6. Normally, here's some examples of molecular substances made up of molecules where the particle is a molecule. Normally, small molecules are made from nonmetals, remember. So we're looking for nonmetals on the right-hand side of the periodic table. So we've got water, carbon dioxide, CH4 is called methane. This is methane here. So that's our simplest organic molecule. It's actually a gas at room temperature, and we use it as a fuel. CH4, so this is the structural formula. We draw it with a C in the middle, and these lines here are showing a pair of electrons that are the bonding electrons, all right? So that line there is showing a covalent bond. In this model here, you can actually see we've drawn a cross and a dot to show the bonding electrons in the covalent bonds in ammonia. So ammonia is NH3. Sulfur dioxide, this is a ball and stick kind of a model, and these are the covalent bonds. There's actually two covalent bonds, which means there's 4 electrons holding those atoms together for a really strong covalent bonding. Nylon is an example of a polymer, a plastic, a polymer, and it's really, really long. And this bit at the end is showing that it just goes on for hundreds, if not thousands, of atoms being held together. And this is an example of a ball and stick model of a protein molecule. Proteins are really important in cells so that we can survive, and plants and animals and other living things can survive. So we need molecules are a really important part of chemistry, and in organic chemistry we're going to talk about them even more. So molecular substances, the particle is a molecule. The bonding is covalent between the atoms. And so these strong covalent bonds, they do not break. When we melt them, substances, when we boil them, it's not the covalent bonds that break, okay? What breaks is the weak intermolecular forces between the molecules, holding the molecules together. So there's 2 different kinds of bonding or attraction going on here. Within the molecule, so we say intramolecular forces, there's covalent bonds, and they're really strong. And then between the molecules, we often do it with dots. There's intermolecular forces, which are weak. So this is a picture of methane. And this ball and stick model is showing methane here, 1 carbon to 3 hydrogens. It's actually 4 hydrogens. You can see in this one there's 4 hydrogens, and this one the other hydrogen is hiding behind. So what's holding methane together is weak intermolecular forces between the molecules. So this covalent bonds is holding the molecule together. But if we heat up methane, so methane, if we cool it down enough, will become a liquid, and then there's weak intermolecular forces holding the molecules together, or even really cold to be a solid. But if we heat it up, and we don't need much energy to heat it up, and it will become a gas, and so we need to separate the molecules, but the molecules are still together, so the covalent bonds are still in place, but we've broken the attraction between the molecules. So this video has been about describing what is a covalent bond, describing molecules being composed of non-metal atoms held together by covalent bonds, and then describing the attractive forces between the molecules, which are known as weak intermolecular forces, and that's what holds together molecular solids and liquids.